After my surgery complications, I texted, "Please, I just need someone to sit with the kids." Hours later, my sister flooded the chat with photos from a winery tour. Nobody came. 3 weeks later, still on pain meds in my hospital bed, I woke up to 68 missed calls and a Venmo request from my mom. $2,600 urgently. I got angry, and there's something gutting about realizing the people closest to you are complete strangers. When it actually matters, not just distant, not just self-involved, I mean completely indifferent to whether you're alive, unconscious, or in need. That's what hit me hardest. Not the surgery, not the recovery. The silence from people who were supposed to care. My name's Jasmine, I'm 35, a mom of 2 living in Chicago. I've always been the dependable one. Paid my sister Jessica's tuition when she was about to drop out of grad school, gave my parents money for a new furnace last winter, helped my younger brother out of credit card debt twice. No one had to beg. I just did it because I believe that's what family meant. You step up. So when I found myself in the ER with unbearable abdominal pain and doctors telling me I needed emergency surgery, I wasn't even thinking about myself. My mind went straight to Liam and Ava. They're 10 and 6, no one else was home, their dad hasn't been around for years. From my hospital bed still hooked up to fluids and monitors, I texted the family group chat, "Please, I just need someone to stay with the kids for a couple of days so I didn't cry or beg." I figured that would be enough. I was wrong. My sister was the first to respond, not with a word but with a photo. A boomerang of her at a winery spinning in a floral dress with a glass of rosé. The caption said, "Week starts now, nothing else, no call, no follow-up." My parents read the message. I could see they saw it, but they didn't reply. Nothing, like I hadn't just told them their daughter was going into surgery and their grandkids were home alone. I lay there for hours waiting for something, anything, but it never came. I woke up after the operation groggy, sore, and still alone. A nurse handed me my phone and I saw the missed calls. Not from my family, but from my neighbor, Mr. Gutierrez. Her voicemail said she found Liam in the hallway asking if she had milk. That's how I learned my kids had been alone for nearly 2 days. I couldn't even process it at first. Just stared at the wall. Mr. Gutierrez had called the school and then CP. Rachel, my cousin, got word and dropped everything. She and her husband Evan drove straight from Aurora, brought food, clothes, and stayed with the kids. They didn't ask questions, didn't hesitate, just showed up. Rachel texted me that Ava had been sleeping in a pile's laundry and Liam had tried to microwave frozen chicken nugget. Without taking the plastic off, Evan took care of their lunches and walked them to school. Rachel helped Ava with her homework and braided her hair. I hadn't asked them, they just did it. Meanwhile, Jessica was posting selfies holding oversized wine glasses with hashtags like high fiber, bust and ass, family time. My mom liked every post. Not one person from my immediate family asked how the kids were doing. They didn't even acknowledge the message. I stayed in the hospital for 3 more weeks. Recovery was rough. Pain meds kept me half asleep most of the time. Rachel and Evan kept everything running at home. I didn't know what I would have done without them, and the truth was, I didn't want to think about it. Then one morning I woke up, looked at my phone, and saw 68 missed calls from my mother and a Venmo request for $2,600. The note just said tent, no message about me, no question about the kids, just that. And that's when something snapped in me. For the first time in my life, I felt completely done. There's something humiliating about waking up in a hospital bed still foggy from painkillers and seeing 68 missed calls from your mother, not because she's worried about you, but because she wants money. Not one message asked if I was alive, not one asked about Liam or Ava, just a Venmo request for $2,600 with the word urgent. I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen, my heart racing like I was seeing something I wasn't supposed to. But it was all right there, black and white. I was nothing more than a wallet to them. She called again that afternoon. I picked up without even asking how I was doing. She launched into it, said my brother's car had broken down, that he couldn't get to class or his job. She said if I cared about my family, I'd help. I waited for her to acknowledge that she hadn't even responded when I begged for someone to stay with my kids, waited for her to ask about the surgery. Nothing came, just more about how I was their last hope. I told her no flat out, no apology, no explanation, just the word. She didn't take it. Said I was turning cold, selfish, said money had gotten to my head. That was reek, considering I'd paid off her mortgage just 3 years ago when they were drowning in late fees. Pretending everything was fine, she hung up before I could say anything else. Not even 24 hours later, Jessica messaged me on Instagram, not even a "Hey, how are you?" Just a question about whether I was still planning to send money for her boyfriend's birthday trip. I didn't reply. She followed up with a comment under one of my old posts. Some people forget where they came from. Like I hadn't just nearly died. Then my dad texted. It was long, rambling, passive-aggressive. He brought up every favor they'd ever done for me, real or imagined, told me I was abandoning the family. He ended it with a screenshot of a GoFundMe he'd set up for home repairs and suggested I pitch in like I used to. I was still on antibiotics. My incision was still healing, and I was fielding guilt trips like it was my full-time job. The only person who seemed to get it was Rachel. I called her later that night. I didn't even need to explain everything she already knew. She told me Evan had taken time off work to stay with the kid and was helping Liam catch up on homework. Ava had stopped having nightmares once she realized they weren't going anywhere. I told Rachel about the calls, the money, the pressure, and all she said was, "Maybe it's time they learn what life looks like without you carrying them." That sentence hit me hard because I knew she was right. When I finally got home from the hospital, the house was cleaner than I'd left it. The kids were calm for the first time in a long time. I felt like someone had my back, but I also knew I had work to do over the years. My neighborhood ended up on just about everything: family phone plans, joint savings accounts, a back kept credit card my sister had somehow never stopped using. I'd been the one paying the insurance on my parents' house. The storage unit with all their junk was in my name. They were all so used to the flow of money that they didn't even pretend to be grateful anymore. They treated it like a given. I started unraveling it all. First, I pulled out of the shared savings account. Then I canceled the card Jessica used for emergencies that somehow kept being charged for the Sephora orders. I called the utility company and transferred the bills from my parents' house back into their names. I stopped paying my brother's tuition, told him flat out that it was time he figured things out on his own. And I didn't make a speech, I didn't explain, I just cut the cords one by one. The reaction was immediate. Jessica posted one of those vague, bitter quotes on Facebook, something about betrayal and the pain of being used. My mom sent a mass text to the family chat, making it sound like I was punishing them for not jumping fast enough. My dad sent another guilt-laced message and linked the GoFundMe again like I'd missed it the first time, that this time none of it worked. I didn't cave, I didn't respond. I wasn't just protecting my bank account. I was protecting my kids, myself, my sanity, and without me holding it all together, cracks started showing fast. I didn't expect them to fall apart so quickly. It had only been a week since I cut off the accounts. No more tuition payments, no backup credit card, no utility bills covered. I figured they'd try to regroup quietly. Instead, they imploded publicly. Jessica was the first to go loud. She posted a long dramatic caption under a photo of her crying on her bathroom floor holding a glass of wine. The caption said something like, "Some wounds cut deepest when they come from people who are supposed to love you. Family isn't always blood," comments poured in. Friends I hadn't seen in years tagged me and messaged me asking what was going on. I didn't say a word. I watched her feed spiral, a weird mix of emotional breakdowns and brand partnerships. One day she's crying about betrayal, the next she's doing a sponsored post for some teeth whitening kit. It was all performative and it was working, people were buying it. My mom went a different route. She started calling relatives, cousins, aunts, people we only saw at weddings, telling them I had abandoned the family. Dad, I let the kids go hungry to teach us a lesson, that I was hoarding money I didn't even need. She painted this image of me as some cold-hearted, bitter person trying to punish everyone for not coming. When I had a small procedure, Rachel heard all of it. First, people started calling her confused. One of her aunts reached out and said she was worried about me, that she'd heard I was unstable, that I'd cut off the whole family in a fit of rage. I didn't even try to correct it. I just told Rachel, let them talk, I was done managing other people's comfort. But then things escalated. Jessica's boyfriend, the one I never liked, the one who once asked me if I could spot him $800 for a business investment, showed up at my house unannounced. He stood at my front door with some printed paper in his hand and started saying he was dared to collect on past commitments. I told him if he didn't leave, I was calling the police. He smirked, told me my sister was going to make this right, and walked off. I texted Jessica immediately. She didn't deny it, she just said, "I warned you there'd be consequences." That same night, my mom sent another Venmo request, this one for $1,900 labeled urgent medication for Dad. My dad then called me himself, and when I didn't pick up, he left a voicemail saying that I was tearing the family apart. But here's the thing, the family was never whole, and it just looked that way because I kept patching it together. What none of them expected was that I wasn't alone anymore. Rachel and Evan had my back. Mistress Gutierrez had filed a formal complaint with CPS about how my kids had been left without care. They'd contacted me to follow up, not because I was in trouble, but because she'd made it clear the issue had been neglected by my family. CPS closed the matter within a few days after confirming everything was stable, but it left a paper trail, and I kept all the receipts, screenshots, messages, voicemails, photos. Even the old group chat where they ignored me while I begged for someone to stay with Liam and Ava. It all built up slowly, one event after another, and I knew the time was coming to stop staying quiet. I used to think that if I just stayed quiet long enough, things would settle. That if I ignored the noise, the guilt tripping, the whispered blame, it would burn out on its own. But then Liam's school called. It was his counselor. She said they were a little concerned after an in-class assignment. The kids had been asked to draw their families. Liam's drawing showed Rachel, Evan, Ava, and himself. No one else, not even me. When asked where I was in the picture, he just said Mom was sick. Rachel and Evan took care of us. I sat there holding a phone, unable to move. My son hadn't drawn his grandparents, his aunt, or his uncle. The people who claimed to love him the most weren't even in the picture, and I understood why. They hadn't been there when it counted. Then the counselor said something else. There had been anonymous phone calls to the school, complaints that my children had been left alone, that I was an unfit parent, that someone needed to look into it. She told me the number was private. But the school had traced its origin to a Florida area code, my parents' Florida condo. That was the last thread. I didn't even hesitate. That night I wrote everything down. A full detail post. I didn't use names. I didn't have to. I laid out the dates, the surgery, the ignored messages, the missed calls, the Venmo request. To pressure the smear campaign, I attached screenshots of text, the group chat where they read my plea, and stayed silent. The request for $2,600 while I was on pain meds in a hospital bed, I posted it on Facebook where every aunt, cousin-in-law, church friend, and high school classmate could see it, and it exploded. The comments started within minutes. At first it was people saying they were sorry, then the truth started coming out. Extended family, old friends, neighbors, people I barely remembered started messaging me with their own stories. Things I had no idea about. One woman, an old babysitter from when I was 12, said she once caught my mom threatening to cut off contact with Rachel's family unless they started pulling their weight. Another cousin told me he had been pressured into co-signing a loan from my brother years ago and was still paying it off. But what really flipped everything upside down was a message I got late that night. It was from Jessica's ex, a guy she dated back in grad school. We'd met once briefly years ago. He told me that what I was going through wasn't new, not even for Jessica. He said that when they were still together, Jessica had faked a medical emergency, told her professors and friends that her appendix had burst, raised over $4,000 through a GoFundMe. She never had surgery. She spent the money on a Cancun vacation. He had proof, emails, screenshots, even the plane tickets. She told everyone she was recovering quietly at a friend's house while she was actually drinking cocktails on the beach. I couldn't believe it, but at the same time It tracked. He offered to send me everything, not for revenge. He said he didn't want to be part of the lie anymore. And in the unexpected twist that I never saw coming, I got a call from my grandmother, my mom's mom. We hadn't spoken in over a year. She's 83 and usually stays out of the family mess, but she told me she saw the post. Her voice shook when she said she'd always known something was wrong, that she'd seen how my mother treated me. But she kept quiet because no one listened when I tried to warn them. Then she apologized. That stopped me because in all the years I've been shamed, used, or manipulated, no one in that generation had ever once said the words, "I'm sorry." Before we hung up, she said something I'll never forget. "You didn't destroy the family, Jasmine. You just stopped letting them destroy you," and it stuck because for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't the crazy one. I wasn't ungrateful. I wasn't cold. I had just finally said no. And it was loud enough that other people started seeing clearly too. By the next morning, my post had made the rounds. Jessica deleted her Instagram. My mom posted some cryptic quote about betrayal and forgiveness. My dad tried to act like he didn't see any of it, but it was already out, and what followed next was the one thing they weren't ready for: accountability. I didn't expect everything to unravel so fast after the post went viral within our small circle. I thought maybe it would stir some tension, a few awkward phone calls, and then fizzle out. But something shifted. The silence turned into consequence, and not for me. The first real blow came to Jessica. Her little side hustle, selling affiliate links, working with local brands on social media, took a nosedive. A boutique skincare brand she partnered with reached out to me privately and asked if the story in the post was about her. I didn't answer directly. I just sent them the screenshot of her winery selfie that she posted the day I went into surgery. Right underneath the message where I'd asked for help with the kids that cut ties with her by the end of the week, her response was a flurry of stories about online bullying and people trying to sabotage her business. But there were no names. She couldn't name me without confirming what everyone already suspected. Then came my mother. She'd always been the quiet puppeteer, the one behind the curtain, keeping the family image polished while pulling every string. But it turns out she wasn't as invisible as she thought. Two of her old friends, women she'd known since church days, commented under my post publicly asking if what I said was true. I didn't answer, but Rachel did. She replied with just 2 sentences. "Every word is true. We have the receipts." After that, my mom tried damage control. Called my grandmother, called Rachel, called me 5 times in one night, leaving a voicemail every time. Each one more unhinged than the last. The 5th one ended with her saying, "I had burned every bridge and couldn't be part of this family anymore unless I fixed what I'd broken." I played that last voicemail on speaker while sitting in the living room with Rachel, Evan, and the kids. Nobody said a word. It didn't need commentary, but the most unexpected fallout came from an email I got a few days later. It was from a lawyer. At first I panicked, wondered if my family was trying to sue me or silence me. But it wasn't that at all. It was a warning. Years ago, my parents had opened a shared account with me when I helped them manage a property they were renting out. I'd forgotten all about it. Turns out my name was still on it, and they'd recently tried to move funds from it without my consent. The account had triggered a flag because the signature didn't match. The lawyer, who handled the property's legal paperwork back in the day, was letting me know I might want to look into it. When I did, I found they tried to access nearly $8,000 money I didn't even realize was still in the account. They hadn't just tried to manipulate me emotionally. They were still trying to drain me financially behind my back. I froze for a moment, then I went cold. I transferred the funds into a trust, one that only my kids could touch in the future. Then I filed a report, not to start a lawsuit but to protect myself. I closed every old financial tie that still connected me to them. And just like that, the bridge burned completely. But this time I wasn't sad, I wasn't panicked, I was free. My cousin texted me that night. "They thought they were untouchable. They forgot you were the one holding everything up." And she was right. Without me, they weren't just exposed, they were unraveling. Jessica had no sponsor money. My parents were struggling to keep up with bills. My brother even reached out to Evan, not me, asking if he could help him get a job. But I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't even happy about it. I just watched it all fall. Finally understanding something I should have learned years ago: sometimes karma doesn't come like a firestorm. Sometimes it just looks like someone quietly walking away and taking the whole foundation with them. It took less than 3 months for everything to collapse. Jessica moved out of her apartment and back in with a friend after her last brand deal fell through. She deleted most of her old posts and started a new account, pretending nothing had happened. My mom and dad stopped calling altogether after the lawyer sent them a formal cease and desist about accessing the account they no longer had rights to. My brother never reached out to me directly again. Evan told me he ended up taking a job in another state far away from all the mess. The messages, the threats, the guilt, it all stopped, not because they had a change of heart, but because they ran out of access once the resources dried up, so did their interest. And I didn't miss them. What surprised me most was how quiet life became. No constant requests, no last-minute money emergencies, no manipulation hidden behind family obligations, just real peace. Rachel and Evan stayed close, so did my grandmother. We started having dinner together every Sunday, just the four of us and the kids. Liam started drawing me and his family pictures again. Ava told me she liked how our house felt safe now. That word hit harder than any apology I never got. I enrolled in a business course online, something I'd put off for years because I was always too busy fixing everyone else's life. I started saving money for the first time in over a decade, and I used part of what was left from that property account to open savings accounts for Liam and Ava. One evening, I took them both out for ice cream and told Tam something I wish someone had told me when I was younger. You are never responsible for someone else's bad choices, not even if they're family. They nodded like they didn't fully get it yet, but they would. I didn't speak badly about their grandparents or aunt. I just stopped including them quietly, permanently. I blocked the numbers, took down old photos, and created a new group chat with just the people who had shown up: Rachel, Evan, my grandmother, mistress Gutierrez. Those four became my new circle, my real family. No drama, no expectations, just mutual care and presence. One day, months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just a handwritten note inside that said, "We didn't know what we had until you were gone. We're sorry." I didn't even need to guess who sent it. I folded it up, placed it in a drawer, and didn't respond. Not because I was bitter, but because I no longer needed anything from them. Not money, not approval, not closure. I already had everything I needed. The real lesson wasn't about betrayal, it wasn't even about revenge. It was about power, about how much of mine I had been handing away for years in the name of family, and how good it felt to take it back, not loudly, not dramatically, just completely.